I've stared down corporate raiders, hostile takeovers, and boardroom betrayals that would make most people's blood run cold. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepares you for sitting in a sterile office while a doctor in a white coat tells you that your body has betrayed you in the most final way possible. Mrs. Ashford, the scans confirm what we suspected. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. It's metastasized to your liver. I remember the words landing like stones dropped into still water. Each one creating ripples I couldn't stop. How long? Dr. Reyes, a kind woman with tired eyes who'd clearly delivered this news too many times, folded her hands on the desk. With aggressive treatment, possibly 18 months. Without it, 6 to 8. 6 to 8 months. After 70 years of living, of building, of destroying and rebuilding, I had less than a year to figure out how to die. But here's what kept me awake that first night, staring at the ceiling of my townhouse while the clock ticked toward a future I wouldn't see. It wasn't the dying that terrified me. It was the leaving. Because I'd only just learned how to truly be present. I'd only just earned back fragments of my son's trust. I'd only just begun to know my grandchildren as more than obligations, as actual human beings I desperately wanted to watch grow up. And now I had to figure out how to say goodbye without turning my death into one final act of selfishness. How do you leave people you spent decades pushing away? How do you ensure your exit doesn't become another burden on shoulders you've already weighed down with your failures? I didn't know yet. But I was about to learn that dying well might be the hardest thing I'd ever do. So here's what I found myself asking in those first terrible days after the diagnosis. Does a dying mother have the right to keep secrets from her son? Or does honesty, even painful honesty, outweigh protection? When you've spent your whole life controlling everything, how do you surrender to something that cannot be negotiated with, bought off, or outmaneuvered? And the question that haunted me most. Can you leave a legacy of love when you spent most of your life teaching the people you love that they couldn't count on you? By the end of this story, you'll know whether Eleanor Ashford, a woman who learned presence too late and lost time she could never recover, found a way to make her final months matter. You'll discover what happens when a grandmother who missed her son's childhood tries to be present for her grandchildren's futures, knowing she won't see them grow up. And you'll have to decide, if you had 6 months left, would you spend them trying to fix everything one last time? Or would you finally learn to simply be there? Comment final chapter if you've been following Eleanor's journey. Because this is where it ends. And endings, I've learned, are the truest test of who we really are. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're new here, subscribe so you never miss our upcoming videos. Let me tell you what happened when I had to choose between control and surrender one final time. The first 3 weeks after my diagnosis, I told no one. I justified it 1,000 different ways. Marcus was finally stable, his new job was going well, Catherine's health had improved, the children were thriving. Why destroy their peace with news that would only bring pain? But if I'm honest, truly honest in the way dying forces you to be, I was terrified. Not of their grief. Of their relief. What if Marcus heard I was dying and felt free? What if some part of him was glad to finally be released from the complicated weight of having me as a mother? What if my death was simply one more problem I'd created that he'd have to clean up? So I kept the appointments to myself. The blood draws, the consultations with oncologists, the conversations about treatment options and survival statistics. I maintained my routine, Tuesday and Thursday babysitting, Sunday dinners, preschool pickup on Wednesdays. I watched my grandchildren with new eyes. Noah, now 4 years old, had developed his father's intensity and his mother's empathy. He noticed everything. "Grandma, why do you look at me like that?" he asked one afternoon while we built block towers together. "Like what, sweetheart?" "Like you're trying to remember me." Children see everything. They just don't always have words for what they see. Emma, at 18 months, was pure joy distilled into a tiny human. She'd just learned to say Gamma, her version of Grandma, and every time she toddled toward me with her arms outstretched, I felt something crack open in my chest. These were the moments I would have missed. If I'd stayed the woman I used to be, I never would have known the specific weight of Noah's hand in mine, or the way Emma's laugh sounded like bells, or how Marcus's face softened when he watched his children discover something new. I would have been in a boardroom somewhere, convinced I was building something important, while everything that actually mattered happened without me. Now I had these moments. But they were numbered. Each one a gift I was running out of time to receive. The lies became harder to maintain. "You look tired, Eleanor," Catherine observed one evening, her perceptive eyes scanning my face. "Are you feeling okay?" "Just not sleeping well." "Nothing serious." "You've lost weight." "I'm eating healthier." "Doctor's orders." Which was technically true, my doctor had recommended many things. Marcus noticed too. "Mom, you seem different lately." "Quieter." "Is something going on?" "Just reflective, I suppose. Getting older makes you appreciate things differently." He studied me with an expression I couldn't read. "You'd tell me if something was wrong, right? After everything we've been through, you wouldn't keep something important from me?" I looked at my son, this man I'd failed and hurt and somehow been given another chance with, and I lied. Of course, I would. The guilt was crushing. But I told myself I was protecting him. Giving him a few more weeks of normal before everything changed. I didn't realize I was making the same mistake I'd always made. Deciding what was best for him without asking what he actually wanted. The truth came out, as it always does, in the most unexpected way. 7 weeks after my diagnosis, I collapsed. I was at Marcus's house, helping Catherine fold laundry while the children napped. One moment I was matching tiny socks, the next, the room tilted sideways and the floor rushed up to meet me. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, and Marcus was standing over me with an expression that combined terror and fury in equal measure. "Stage 4 pancreatic cancer," he said, his voice flat. "Metastasized to the liver. Diagnosed 7 weeks ago." I closed my eyes. "Marcus? The hospital called your oncologist when you came in. Dr. Patel was very helpful in explaining your treatment plan. Or should I say, your lack of one." His hands were shaking. 7 weeks, Mom. You've known for 7 weeks that you're dying, and you didn't tell me. I was trying to protect you." "No." He cut me off, and I saw tears streaming down his face. "You were trying to control this. Like you control everything. You were going to manage your own death on your own terms, keep us at arm's length, and probably show up one day with some dramatic announcement when it was too late for us to do anything but watch you go. That's not. Isn't it?" He laughed bitterly. Classic Eleanor Ashford. "Even dying, you can't let anyone else in. Even now, after everything, your first instinct is to handle it yourself, to decide what we need to know and when we need to know it." I had no defense. Because he was right. I was scared, I whispered. "Of what? Of us being sad? Of us wanting to help? Of us getting to actually say goodbye instead of being blindsided like we were going to be? Of being a burden." The words came out broken. "Of you having to take care of me after everything I put you through. Of my dying becoming one more thing you had to manage because of my choices." Marcus sat down heavily in the chair beside my bed. The anger drained out of him, replaced by something worse, exhaustion. "Mom, do you really think so little of yourself? Or so little of me? I don't know anymore. I've spent so long getting everything wrong, I don't trust my own judgment about anything. So, you should have asked." He wiped his face. "You should have called me, sat me down, and said, 'Marcus, I just got terrible news. I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And I would have told you that we'd figure it out together. That whatever time you have left, you don't have to spend it alone. Would you have? Really? After everything? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, yes. Because that's what family does. Even broken family. Even complicated family. You don't abandon someone to die alone just because they hurt you. He reached over and took my hand, the same hand he'd pulled away from so many times over the years. I'm still angry. I'm angry you kept this secret, angry you were going to rob us of whatever time we have left together. But I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed my fingers. So tell me the truth. All of it. No more managing my emotions or protecting me from hard things. What did the doctor say, and what do you want to do? So I told him. Everything. The prognosis, the treatment options, the statistics that felt more like sentences than numbers. And when I was done, Marcus nodded slowly. Okay. So, we have some decisions to make. But we make them together. You, me, Catherine. We figure out what you want your remaining time to look like, and then we help you get that. Not because you've earned it, but because that's what love actually looks like. It wasn't forgiveness. Not exactly. But it was something more practical, more real. It was my family showing up for me the way I'd finally learned to show up for them. I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever kept a secret to protect someone you love, only to realize you were actually protecting yourself? Type I've been there in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. Because this is the thing about secrets, we tell ourselves they're acts of love. We convince ourselves that withholding hard truths is kindness, that managing other people's emotions is generosity. But really, most secrets are about control. About fear. About not trusting the people we love to handle reality. I thought I was sparing Marcus the burden of my illness. But really, I was denying him the chance to choose how he wanted to respond. I was making decisions for him, again, instead of respecting him enough to let him make them himself. That's the hardest thing about dying, I've learned. It strips away all your carefully constructed justifications. It forces you to see your patterns clearly, sometimes for the first time. So type I've been there if you've ever kept a hard truth from someone because you were afraid of how they'd react. And as we continue, think about this: if you knew you had 6 months left, what secrets would you finally tell? What truths would you finally face? Because Eleanor is about to discover that dying with integrity is about more than just saying goodbye. It's about finally becoming the person you should have been all along. The family meeting happened 3 days after I was discharged from the hospital. We gathered in Marcus and Catherine's living room, me on the couch with a blanket Catherine had insisted on, Marcus in the armchair with Emma in his lap, Catherine beside me holding Noah's hand. Dr. Patel had given me options. Aggressive chemotherapy might extend my life by 8 to 12 months, but the side effects would be brutal. A gentler protocol would be less toxic but also less effective. Or I could choose comfort care only and focus on quality over quantity. What do you want, Mom? Marcus asked. Not what you think we want to hear. What do you actually want? I'd been asking myself that question for days. I want time, I said slowly. But not time spent vomiting in a hospital bed, too sick to hold my grandchildren. Not time measured in treatments that might give me extra months but take away my ability to be present for them. Catherine nodded. So, comfort care? I think so. I want to be here, really here, for whatever time I have left. I want to watch Noah start kindergarten in the fall. I want to teach Emma to say actual words instead of just gamma. I want to have Sunday dinners and Tuesday babysitting and all the ordinary moments I spent 30 years thinking were beneath me. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You'd be choosing to die sooner. I'd be choosing to live more fully for the time I have. What if you regret it? What if you get to month 4 and wish you'd fought harder? Then that will be my consequence to bear. But Marcus. I reached for his hand. I spent my whole life fighting. Fighting for success, for recognition, for control. I don't want to spend my death fighting too. I want to surrender. To accept. To be grateful for what I have instead of grasping for more. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something like respect. Okay. Then that's what we do. We make your remaining time as good as it can be. There's something else, I said. I need to talk to you about my estate. Not to control anything from beyond the grave, but to make sure you understand my wishes and have choices about how to handle things. Mom, we don't have to. Yes, we do. Because I'm not going to make the mistake again of assuming I know what's best for you. I took a breath. I've spent the last few years quietly liquidating most of my holdings. The diamond collection I once tried to give you, most of it went to museums years ago. What's left of my estate is significant, but not obscene. Enough to ensure the children's education, to give you and Catherine security, to support causes that matter. I don't care about the money. I know. That's exactly why I'm telling you now, while I can still explain my thinking. So you can ask questions, push back, tell me if you want something different. I paused. I'm not going to leave you with a puzzle to solve or a mess to clean up. Everything will be clear, organized, and most importantly, your choice to handle however you see fit. Catherine spoke up. What about the children? What do you want them to know? About you, about all of this? I'd thought about that question more than any other. I want them to know I wasn't perfect. That I made mistakes, big ones, and spent the end of my life trying to do better. I don't want them to inherit a myth of a grandmother who had it all figured out. I want them to know that change is possible, that redemption is real, and that it's never too late to choose differently. Noah, who'd been quietly listening with that intense focus of his, tugged on Catherine's sleeve. Mommy? Is Grandma sick? We all froze. I'd been so focused on the adults that I'd almost forgotten the small ears listening. Catherine looked at me, asking permission. I nodded. Yes, sweetheart, she said gently. Grandma has an illness that's very serious. The doctors are going to help her feel comfortable, but Grandma might not be with us for as long as we wish. Noah's face crumpled. But I don't want Grandma to go away. I opened my arms, and he crawled onto my lap, burying his face against my shoulder. I don't want to go away either, sweetheart. But sometimes things happen that we can't control, and all we can do is love each other very much while we're together. Will you still come on Tuesdays? As long as I can, baby. As long as I possibly can. He pulled back and looked at me with those eyes that saw everything. Grandma? Are you scared? The honest answer came without hesitation. Yes. I'm scared. But I'm also grateful. Do you know why? He shook his head. Because I get to spend my time with you, and Emma, and your mom and dad. I get to read you stories and build block towers and watch you grow, even if it's not for as long as I wanted. That's a gift, Noah. Some people don't get to say goodbye to the people they love. I get that chance. He considered this with 4-year-old solemnity. Okay. But you have to promise to read me lots of stories. More than before. I promise. And in that moment, with my grandson in my arms and my son watching with tears in his eyes, I understood something I'd missed my entire life. This. Just this. Being here, being present, being loved and loving in return. This was what I'd traded empires for. And it was worth every diamond I'd ever owned. The months that followed were nothing like I expected. I'd always imagined dying as a dramatic collapse, a heroic battle, a final blaze of glory before the curtain fell. Instead, it was quiet. Gentle. Heartbreakingly ordinary. I moved into Marcus and Catherine's guest room, not because I needed care yet, but because we all wanted to stop wasting commute time on the life we had left. Every morning, I woke to the sound of small feet thundering down the hallway and Emma's voice calling Gamma. Gamma, until I opened my door and scooped her into my arms. I learned the rhythms of their household in a way I never had before. The chaos of weekday mornings, the sacred calm of nap time, the beautiful disaster of dinner with 2 children under 5. Marcus and I developed a ritual, evening tea on the back porch after the kids were asleep. We'd sit in the darkness and talk about nothing in particular, or sometimes about everything that mattered. I used to hate you, he admitted one night, his voice soft in the dark. Really hate you. Not just resent or be angry with, actual hatred. I know. But lately, I don't know. It's complicated. I'm angry about the childhood I didn't have, but I'm grateful for who you've become. I grieve the mother you weren't, but I'm learning to appreciate the grandmother you are. He paused. Is that okay? To hold both things at once? I think that might be the only honest way to hold it. I keep thinking about what I'll tell Noah and Emma someday. About you. About us. And I don't know what story to tell. Tell them the truth. That I was a complicated person who made terrible choices and then tried, at the end, to make better ones. That I loved them even when I didn't know how to show it. That people can change, but change doesn't erase the past, it just gives you a chance to build something different in the future. He was quiet for a long time. Mom? I'm glad you're here. Even though it hurts. Even though I know I'm going to lose you. I'm glad for these months. Me too, sweetheart. More than you know. Spring arrived, and Noah started kindergarten. I made it to his first day, standing at the school gates with Marcus and Catherine, watching him march into the building with his oversized backpack and his serious expression. He looks so grown up, I whispered. He's still terrified, Catherine said. He just hides it well. Like his father. Marcus laughed. I'm standing right here. We took photos. Too many photos. Because I knew I might not be there for graduation, or middle school, or his first heartbreak. But I would be there for this. For his first day of school, his first step into the wider world. That night, Noah told us everything, the new friends, the scary teachers, the exciting discovery that his classroom had a pet guinea pig named Professor Whiskers. Grandma, will you come pick me up sometimes? Like you pick up Emma? I will, sweetheart. As many times as I can. I made it 37 times before I couldn't anymore. But 37 is not 0. 37 is 37 more than I would have had if I'd been the person I was before. Summer came and started to fade. The leaves began to turn, and I began to slow. The pain increased. The fatigue deepened. Walking became harder, then exhausting, then impossible without help. But I was there. Present for Emma's second birthday, for Noah's first loose tooth, for Sunday dinners that grew quieter as I grew weaker. One September evening, Catherine found me in the garden, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors I was running out of chances to see. Eleanor? You should be resting. I'll rest soon enough. I gestured to the chair beside me. Sit with me? She did. We watched the light fade together in comfortable silence. Thank you, I said eventually. For letting me be part of your family. For giving me a second chance I didn't deserve. You earned it. These past months. Eleanor, you've been exactly what we needed. What Marcus needed. What the kids needed. I just showed up. That's all any of us can do, really. Show up. Keep showing up. And you did. I reached for her hand. Take care of him. After. He'll say he's fine, but he won't be. I know. And tell the children about me sometimes. Not just the good parts. All of it. So they know that people are complicated, and that's okay. I will. And Catherine? I waited until she met my eyes. You're an extraordinary mother. The mother I should have been. Thank you for showing me what that looks like. She squeezed my hand, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for finally seeing it. I wrote letters. In the final weeks, when I couldn't do much else, I wrote letters to everyone who mattered. To Noah, to be given when he was older. My darling grandson, by the time you read this, you'll be old enough to understand what I was too proud to admit when I was alive. I wasted most of my life. I chased success and wealth and recognition, and I missed your father's entire childhood doing it. But you gave me a gift I never deserved. You let me read you stories and build block towers and pick you up from school. You let me be your grandma without asking me to be perfect first. If I could tell you one thing, it's this: be present for the people you love. Not someday, not when you've achieved enough, now. The moments you think are ordinary are actually the only moments that matter. I love you more than all the diamonds in the world, which, I've learned, isn't saying much. What I really mean is, I love you enough to have changed for you. And that, sweetheart, is everything. To Emma, to be given when she could read. My sweet Emma, you probably won't remember me. You were too young when I left. But I want you to know this: your tiny voice calling Gamma was the most beautiful sound I ever heard. You made me feel worthy of love when I wasn't sure I was. You wrapped your small arms around my neck and trusted me completely, and in doing so, you taught me more about grace than 50 years in business ever did. Be kind to people who don't deserve it. You never know, it might be the thing that saves them. To Catherine, to be given after. Catherine, you saw through me from the beginning, at the fence on Marcus's wedding day, when I stood there clutching diamonds like they meant something. You told me the truth about my son when I was too blind to see it. And then, impossibly, you let me back in anyway. You're the reason I got a second chance. You're the reason my grandchildren know their grandmother. I can never repay that. But I hope you know that my final years were happy because of you. Thank you for loving Marcus well, for raising those children with such grace, and for teaching an old woman that it's never too late to be different. And to Marcus. The hardest letter of all. My son. I've started this letter 100 times. How do you apologize for 30 years of absence in a single letter? How do you explain choices that stole your childhood and shaped you into someone who had to learn to distrust his own mother? You can't. There aren't words big enough. So instead, let me tell you what I've learned. You were always enough. The problem was never you. It was me, my ambition, my fear, my inability to believe that love could exist without achievement attached. I looked at you and saw a responsibility to be managed instead of a human being to be cherished. I'm sorry. That sorry is too small, but I'll say it anyway, I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. Not for your career or your success or any of the metrics I once would have used to measure worth. I'm proud of the father you've become, the husband, the man who broke the cycle I started. You're doing what I couldn't, being present, being there, choosing your family over everything else. That's my legacy, Marcus. Not the company or the money. You. The man who learned from my mistakes instead of repeating them. Forgive yourself for the anger you felt toward me. That anger was earned. It was appropriate. It was healthy. Don't let my death make you feel guilty for the truth of how I hurt you. You can love me and be angry at me at the same time. Both things are true. Take care of yourself. After I'm gone, you'll be tempted to push down your grief and keep functioning. You're my son, after all, burying emotions is in our blood. But let yourself feel it. All of it. The grief and the relief and the complicated mess of losing someone who hurt you but who you loved anyway. And finally, thank you. Thank you for the coffee meeting that started everything. Thank you for letting me babysit, for Sunday dinners, for the thousands of small moments you gave me when you had every right to close the door forever. Thank you for showing me that redemption is real, that change is possible, that love can survive even the deepest wounds. I'm not afraid of dying anymore. I'm just sad to leave. But I'm not leaving you alone. I'm leaving you with Catherine, and Noah, and Emma, and the family you've built despite me. You don't need me anymore. You probably never did. But I needed you, Marcus. I needed you to show me what I was missing. And you did. I love you. I'm sorry it took me so long to learn what that actually means. Your mother. In the end, it was quiet. A Thursday evening in late October. Almost exactly 2 years after I'd stood at those iron gates, locked out of my son's wedding, clutching diamonds that meant nothing. The hospice nurse had told Marcus it would be soon. He'd gathered everyone, Catherine, the children, even my old friend Rebecca who'd worked with me for 30 years. I drifted in and out of consciousness. The morphine made everything soft and slightly unreal, like a dream I was slowly waking from. But I remember the moments that mattered. Noah climbing onto my bed despite his mother's caution, pressing his small body against mine. Grandma? I don't want you to go. I know, sweetheart. I don't want to go either. But I'm not really leaving, you know. I'll be in your heart. Every time you remember a story I read you, or a block tower we built, or a funny face I made, that's me being with you. Okay? Okay. Will you do something for me? Will you remember to be present? To show up for the people you love? Even when it's hard? I'll remember. That's my good boy. Emma, too young to understand, was placed in my arms one final time. She looked at me with those curious eyes and touched my face. Gamma, she said. And I wept. Marcus sat beside me for hours. We didn't need to talk much, everything important had already been said. But at one point, he leaned close and whispered. Mom? I forgive you. Not because you earned it, but because carrying that anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. I forgive you for leaving, for choosing work over me, for missing my childhood. I forgive you for the wedding, for the secrets, for all of it. I couldn't speak, but I squeezed his hand. I also want you to know, these past years have been the best of my life. Having you present, having you actually here, it healed something in me I didn't know was broken. So thank you. For finally showing up. For learning how to love us. For becoming the mother I needed, even if it was only at the end. A tear slid down my temple. He wiped it away. It's okay, Mom. You can go. We'll be okay. And we'll remember you, the real you, the one who tried so hard to be better. That's the version of you we'll carry. I wanted to say something profound. Something that would sum up 70 years of life, 30 years of failure, and the precious handful of years where I finally got it right. But in the end, I just managed 2 words. Thank you. For Marcus, for the second chance. For Catherine, for her grace. For Noah and Emma, for showing me what unconditional love looks like. For every ordinary moment I'd been present for. Thank you. The last thing I saw was my son's face, a face that looked so much like his father's, like mine, like all the complicated inheritance of a complicated family. He was crying. But he was smiling too. And that was enough. So, here's my final question to you. If you knew you had 6 months left, what would you change? What would you stop waiting for? Who would you finally show up for? Comment below with one thing, just one, that you've been putting off until someday that actually deserves to happen today. Because Eleanor's story teaches us something profound, the ordinary moments are the only ones that matter. The Tuesday babysitting, the bedtime stories, the Sunday dinners that seem like nothing while they're happening but become everything when they're gone. We don't get diamonds back. We don't get careers back. We don't get corner offices or quarterly reports or any of the things we sacrifice our presents for. But we also don't get the moments back. Every school play we miss is a school play gone forever. Every dinner skipped is a conversation lost. Every time we choose later over now, we're betting on time we might not have. Eleanor learned this too late to give Marcus his childhood back. But she learned it in time to be a grandmother. She learned it in time to say goodbye. She learned it in time to die surrounded by people who loved her, not because of what she'd built, but because of who she'd finally become. Here's the truth that 63 years of ambition couldn't teach me, but dying did. Success is not measured in dollars or diamonds. It's measured in showing up. In being present. In choosing love over legacy, relationship over resume, the people in front of you over the abstract futures you're building for them. Eleanor Ashford left behind enough money to fund her grandchildren's education, support causes she believed in, and ensure her family's security. But her real legacy? It's Noah remembering the stories she read. Emma saying gamma to her memory. Marcus knowing that his mother fought her way back to him, that redemption is real, that people can change. It's proof that the most important work of our lives isn't building empires. It's building trust. Connection. Love. And that work is never finished. But it's always worth starting. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's working too hard, absent too often, or convinced that later will always be there. Later isn't guaranteed. Now is all we have. Make it count.
It's been 5 years since my mother died. Noah is 9 now, and when people ask about his grandmother, he tells them about block towers and bedtime stories. He tells them she was complicated, but she tried hard. He tells them she taught him that it's never too late to change. Emma is 7. She doesn't remember Eleanor directly, but she knows her through all of us. The stories we tell, the photos on the refrigerator, the traditions we've kept in her honor. Sunday dinners are still sacred in our house. Tuesday afternoons, I leave work early to pick up the kids from school. No exceptions. No meetings important enough to miss it. Because my mother taught me, at the very end, what she should have taught me from the beginning. Presence is the only gift that matters. Sometimes I'm angry at her still. For the childhood I didn't have, for the years of distance, for all the ways she got it wrong. But I'm also grateful. Grateful she fought her way back. Grateful she taught me what not to do. Grateful for those final years, when she finally became the mother I needed. Both things are true. I've learned to hold them both. The letter she wrote me sits in a box in my closet. I've read it maybe 50 times. Each time, I find something new. A phrase I missed, a meaning that deepens as I grow older. A love that's complicated but real. My mother wasn't a perfect person. She wasn't even a good person for most of her life. But she was a person who changed. A person who tried. A person who spent her final years earning back trust she destroyed and building relationships she'd neglected. And when she died, she was surrounded by people who loved her. Not because of what she'd achieved, but because of who she'd become. That's a legacy no diamond can match. So if you're watching this and you see yourself in Eleanor, the ambition, the absence, the belief that providing is the same as loving, I want you to know, it's not too late. Change is possible. Redemption is real. The people you've hurt can heal, and so can you, if you're willing to do the work. But don't wait until you're dying to start. Start now. Show up today. Because later isn't guaranteed. And the ordinary moments, the Tuesday pickups and the Sunday dinners and the bedtime stories that seem like nothing, Those are the moments your children will remember. Those are the moments that make a life. Thank you for listening to my mother's story. Thank you for giving her memory a few more minutes of presence in this world. She would have liked that. She would have liked knowing that her failures might help someone else succeed where she didn't. That's the final gift she gave us. Proof that it's never too late to become the person you should have been all along. Even if you only have 6 months left. Even if you have 60 years. Start now. They're waiting.